That morning, the scent of him was still my favorite comfort. By afternoon, a single note in his duffel bag had turned our entire world into a meticulously constructed lie. The smell of him was the first thing that hit me when I walked into our apartment. Not him exactly, but his essence. It was woven into the worn-out gray hoodie slung over the back of the kitchen chair, the one he'd been wearing for 3 days straight. It was in the air, a mix of his ridiculously expensive cologne and the cheap coffee we always brewed. For 19 years, I'd never known a scent that felt so much like home. For the past 2, that scent had been Alex. We were supposed to be leaving. A weekend trip to the coast, a stupidly romantic getaway I'd been planning for months. Our first real vacation together since we'd moved into this tiny, shoebox apartment 6 months ago. I was buzzing with excitement, a giddy, nervous energy that had me double-checking everything. I'd packed my bag yesterday, but Alex, in typical Alex fashion, had left his until the absolute last minute. He was out grabbing us some sandwiches for the drive, and I was supposed to be grabbing his dop kit from the bathroom. "Just toss it in the main pocket of my duffel," he'd yelled as the door clicked shut behind him. "And can you check if my portable charger is in there? My phone's about to die." His duffel bag was sitting on the edge of our bed, unzipped and gaping open. It was a mess of crumpled t-shirts and a single pair of jeans. Classic Alex. I smiled, shaking my head as I fished his charger out of the bathroom cabinet. I walked back to the bedroom, ready to just shove it in and zip the bag shut, but my hand brushed against something hard and rectangular inside the front pocket. A book. That was weird. Alex loved to read, but he never brought books on trips. He'd always say, "Why would I read when I can be looking at you?" It was a cheesy line, but it always made my stomach do a little flip. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it out. My breath caught in my throat. It was his copy of Leaves of Grass, the old one with the cracked spine and the cover worn soft as cloth. It was his favorite book in the entire world, the one his grandfather had given him. He'd been devastated a few months ago, claiming he'd lost it, that it must have fallen out of his bag on the subway. We'd torn the apartment apart looking for it. He'd been genuinely heartbroken. And here it was. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, and I opened the cover to see the familiar inscription from his grandpa. But my fingers found a slip of paper tucked just inside. It wasn't a bookmark. It was a note. The paper was cheap and lined, torn from a spiral notebook, and the handwriting was a delicate, looping cursive that was most definitely not mine. My heart started a slow, heavy drumbeat against my ribs. My hands began to shake. This felt wrong, like walking in on something private, a violation of some unspoken rule. I should have just put it back, zipped the bag, and pretended I never saw it. But I couldn't. My eyes were already scanning the words, a train that had left the station with no way of stopping. My dearest Alex. It began. My North Star. The words blurred. North Star? That was my nickname for him. I'd called him that since our first date, when we got lost walking home from the movies and he'd navigated us back using the actual stars. Showing off. It was our thing. A stupid, secret, intimate thing, and this girl, this stranger with the pretty handwriting, was using it. I forced myself to read on. I still can't believe you found the bookshop. It felt like a scene from a movie, you standing there holding this, knowing you remembered, knowing you went back for it. It means more than I can say. Keeping this feels like I'm keeping a part of you with me. It's my favorite thing to fall asleep with. I can almost pretend it's you. I'm counting the minutes until this weekend. I wish she wasn't going. I wish it was just us. Soon, it will be. I love you more than words. Forever yours. Clara. The book slipped from my numb fingers and landed on the bed with a soft thud. Clara. I knew that name. She worked in his office. The one he'd mentioned was super smart and a little intense. The one he'd said helped him on the big marketing project last month. The one he'd sworn was just a friend. The air in the room became thick, unbreathable. Every happy memory from the past 2 years flashed through my mind, but now they were tainted, warped. Our late-night talks, his promises of forever, the way he'd hold me and tell me I was the only one. Lies. Every single one was a carefully crafted lie. He hadn't lost his favorite book. He had given it to her. A piece of his family, his history, his heart. He'd given it to another woman. And this weekend, this trip I had meticulously planned to be about us, about celebrating our life together. He was thinking of her. He was wishing I wasn't there. A hot, acidic wave of nausea rose in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash every picture of us, to rip that gray hoodie to shreds, to set his stupid duffel bag on fire. I sank to my knees, the rough carpet digging into my skin. But the tears wouldn't come. Instead, something else washed over me, something cold and sharp and utterly calm. It was a clarity so profound it felt like a physical shock. I was not going to be the girl who cried. I was not going to be the girl who screamed and threw things. He wasn't going to come home to a dramatic scene. He wasn't worth the drama. My eyes fell on the note, lying next to the book on the bed. Then my gaze shifted to my own bag, sitting by the door. I walked over to it, my movement steady and robotic. I pulled out the little notepad and pen I always kept in the side pocket. My own handwriting, usually messy and rushed, came out perfectly even. A few simple, clean words. I walked back to his duffel bag. I picked up her note, folding it neatly. Then I tucked my own note right behind it so that he would see mine first. I slid them both back inside the cover of his grandfather's book, a little poison pill hidden inside a sacred text. I placed the book back in the front pocket of his bag, exactly where I had found it. I zipped it shut. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my keys and my purse from the counter. My own packed bag was still by the door, ready for a trip I was no longer taking. I stood there in the silent apartment, the scent of him choking me. And then I heard it. The jingle of keys from the hallway outside, the sound of one being slid into the lock of our front door. The click of the tumbler turning was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The door swung inward, and there he was, Alex. His hair was messy from the wind, his cheeks were flushed, and that easy smile I fell in love with was plastered on his face. He was holding up a greasy paper bag like a trophy. "I got the spicy Italian for you," he announced, his voice filled with a cheerful energy that felt like a physical assault. "And I told them extra pickles, just how you like it." My entire world had just been leveled, and I was standing in the rubble, pretending to admire the view. A smile stretched across my own face, a brittle, painful thing that felt like it would crack my cheeks. "You're the best," I managed to say. The words came out sounding almost normal. My heart was a frantic bird beating against the cage of my ribs, but my voice was steady. He dropped the bag on the kitchen counter and wrapped his arms around me from behind, burying his face in my hair. You smell good," he murmured, his lips against my neck. I froze. His scent, the one that had always been my comfort, was now the scent of betrayal, the smell of him and her. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I stood there, a statue in his embrace, and forced myself to lean back into him. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. "Everything ready to go?" he asked, releasing me and turning to his duffel bag on the bed. "Did you find the charger?" "Yep, it's in there," I said, my eyes fixed on the bag. The bag with the book, the bag with the notes, the ticking time bomb I had just armed and set. He patted it. "Perfect. I'll just throw a few more things in and we can hit the road. I cannot wait to get out of the city. Just you, me, and the ocean." He looked at me, his eyes sparkling with an excitement that was entirely fake, a performance for my benefit. He wasn't excited for me. He was excited for a weekend he wished he was spending with Clara. "I wish she wasn't going. I wish it was just us." Her words echoed in my head, a vicious taunt. Well, Clara was about to get her wish. I took a deep breath. This was it. "Alex," I said, my voice carefully modulated to sound shaky, worried. Something's happened. He stopped rummaging through his dresser drawer and turned to me, his brow furrowed in genuine concern. That's what killed me. The concern was real. He was a master at this, at compartmentalizing. He could love me or pretend to love me with utter sincerity in one moment while planning his life with her in the next. What's wrong? You look pale. It's my mom, I said, letting a tremor enter my voice. I looked down at my hands, twisting my fingers together. My sister just called while you were out. She fell down the stairs. They're at the hospital. His face dropped. What? Oh my God, babe, is she okay? He crossed the room in 2 strides and took my hands in his. His were so warm. Mine were ice cold. I don't know, I whispered, letting a single calculated tear roll down my cheek. It wasn't hard to summon. It was a tear for the death of us, not for my perfectly healthy mother. They're doing scans. My sister is freaking out, and my dad, you know how he gets. Okay, don't panic, he said, his voice a soothing balm of pure poison. The trip is off, obviously. We're not going anywhere. I'll drive you. Let's go right now. Just tell me which hospital. He was already turning to grab his keys from the bowl by the door, the perfect supportive boyfriend. No! The word came out sharper than I intended. I softened my tone. No, Alex. You don't have to do that. I need to go alone. He looked confused, a little hurt. Alone? Why? I want to be there for you, for your mom. I know you do, I said, reaching up to touch his cheek, my fingers feeling like alien things against his skin. And I love you for that. But my dad is a mess. My sister is useless when she's panicked. I need to be the calm one. I can't do that if I'm worried about you, too. It's family stuff. It's going to be messy. I gave him a weak, pleading smile. Please, just let me go handle it. I'll call you the second I know anything. He searched my face for a long moment, and for a terrifying second, I thought he saw through it. I thought he saw the ice in my eyes behind the fake tears. But then he just nodded slowly, his expression softening into one of resigned understanding. Okay, he said softly. Okay, if that's what you need. But you call me for anything. You hear me? If you need me to drive up at 3 a.m., I'm there. I will, I lied. I grabbed my purse and my pre-packed weekend bag from by the door. It felt impossibly heavy. He followed me to the door, hovering behind me like a shadow. Drive safe, okay? He said, his hand on the small of my back. I will. I turned the doorknob. Hey. He stopped me, turning me around to face him. He looked down at me, his eyes full of that fake, beautiful love. I love you. He leaned in to kiss me. Instinct took over. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let his lying mouth touch mine. In a movement so fast it was almost seamless, I turned my head so his lips landed on my cheek instead. It was a cold, brief press of skin. I pulled back before he could register the rejection. I have to go, I said, my voice choked with an emotion he would mistake for grief. I opened the door and slipped out into the hallway, not looking back. I couldn't bear to see his face. I didn't wait for the elevator. I flew down the 3 flights of stairs, my bag banging against my leg. I burst out onto the street, the cool evening air a shock to my system. I didn't stop until I was in my car, parked a block away. I locked the doors, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely fit the key into the ignition. I didn't start the car. Instead, I just sat there, staring up at the single lighted window of our apartment. He was up there. Right now, he was probably feeling disappointed that our trip was canceled, but relieved. He was probably thinking about how to break the news to Clara. Or maybe, just maybe, he was thinking this was his chance. An unexpected gift. An entire weekend to himself. He wouldn't have to wait. He could see her now. He'd probably send her a text, grab a shower. He'd unpack his duffel bag, pulling out the clothes he wouldn't need anymore. He'd get to the front pocket. He'd feel the hard rectangle of the book he'd so lovingly given to her, and which she'd so lovingly returned for their secret trip. He'd probably be humming his stupid off-key tune right up until the moment he opened the book. I drove for hours, with no destination in mind. The city lights blurred into a smear of reds and golds in my rearview mirror until they were swallowed by the darkness of the highway. I played the radio, blasting angry rock anthems and sad breakup songs, letting the noise fill the suffocating silence in my car. Each mile I put between myself and that apartment was another layer of armor. I wasn't crying. I was forging myself into something hard, something unbreakable. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, lighting up with his name, Alex. I ignored it. It buzzed again. A text. Just checking in. Hope you got there okay. Let me know about your mom. I scoffed. The perfect boyfriend act was still in full swing. He was building his alibi, laying the groundwork. I wondered if he'd found the note yet. The thought sent a jolt of something dark and thrilling through me. Had his world shattered yet the way mine had? Another text. Babe, please just let me know you're safe. The fake concern was starting to grate on my nerves. I pulled over at a grimy gas station, the fluorescent lights of the convenience store casting a sickly green glow. My hands were steady now. I picked up the phone. I didn't open his messages. Instead, I opened my contacts, found my sister's name, and typed, emergency. Playing sick mom card. Alex thinks I'm with you at hospital. Don't answer his calls. Don't text him. We'll explain later. Love you. I hit send. My sister Chloe was my ride or die. She wouldn't ask questions. She would just do it. A moment later, a reply came back. A single thumbs up emoji. That was all I needed. Then I opened a new message. My fingers flew across the screen, tapping out words I never thought I would write. Change of plans. He's all yours this weekend. Have fun. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number. The one I'd gotten from a work event group chat months ago and never deleted. Clara. I attached a photo. It was a screenshot of my last text from Alex, the one asking if I was safe. I hit send without a moment's hesitation and then immediately blocked her number. I didn't want to reply. I just wanted to light the match and walk away. I finally allowed myself to open his texts. 6 of them now. They had escalated from concern to confusion to a frantic edge of panic. Where are you? Your sister isn't answering her phone. What is going on? I just saw Chloe's story on Instagram. She's at a concert. What the hell is this? What note? So he'd found it. The curtain was up. The play had begun. A cold smile touched my lips. I typed back a single sentence. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. His call came instantly. I watched his face pop up on my screen, the smiling selfie we'd taken on our first anniversary. It was like looking at a ghost. I let it ring until it went to voicemail, the vibrations rattling against the cheap plastic of the cup holder. Then I turned the phone off completely and threw it into the glove compartment. I didn't want to hear his voice. I didn't want his excuses, his lies, his pathetic attempts at damage control. I wanted him to sit in that apartment, in the deafening silence, and realize exactly what he had lost. I started driving again, finally with a purpose. I drove to the one place he would never think to look for me, the place he had never been, because it was mine. A tiny, run-down cabin my grandparents had left me, nestled deep in the woods 3 hours north of the city. A place with no cell service and no internet. A place of total, blissful disconnection. The drive was a blur. When I finally pulled up the gravel driveway, the moon was high in the sky, casting long, skeletal shadows from the pine trees. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it 6 months ago, dusty, smelling of old wood and fireplace smoke. It was perfect. I built a fire, cracked open a bottle of whiskey I found in the back of a cabinet, and sat on the braided rug, watching the flames dance. I thought I would feel a profound sadness, a crushing weight of grief for the future I had lost, but I didn't. I felt nothing. A vast, empty calm. It was as if the girl who had packed for a romantic getaway, the girl who loved Alex with her whole being, had died on the floor of that apartment. I was someone else now. I didn't know who, yet. But I knew she wasn't going to cry over a man who gave away pieces of his soul, like cheap party favors. I spent the next 2 days in a self-imposed exile. I chopped wood. I went for long, grueling hikes through the woods until my muscles screamed and my lungs burned. I read old dog-eared paperbacks I found on the shelves. I didn't sleep much. I just existed. I was waiting. I didn't know what for, but I knew that the silence from my end would be driving him insane. His whole life was built on control, on manipulation, and for the first time, he had none. On the third morning, I woke up feeling a shift in the air. The emptiness inside me was beginning to be replaced by something else. Anger. A slow-burning, righteous fury. It was time to go back. Not to him, but back to my life. The one I needed to reclaim. I packed my small bag, tidied the cabin, and locked the door behind me, feeling more clear-headed than I had in years. The first thing I did when I got back within cell range was turn my phone on. It exploded. Dozens of missed calls from Alex, a handful from his mother, and a flood of texts. I scrolled through them, a detached observer watching a man completely unravel. They went from begging and pleading, "Please, just talk to me, we can fix this," to angry and defensive. "She meant nothing. You're blowing this way out of proportion," to desperate and pathetic. "I can't live without you. I'm a mess. I need you." There was one text, however, that made my blood run cold. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You ruined everything. This isn't over." It wasn't signed, but I knew. It was Clara. My little text message bomb had hit its target. I ignored it all. I drove straight back to the apartment. I had a key. It was still my home, at least for now. I needed my things. My laptop, my clothes, my passport. I timed it carefully. It was Monday afternoon. I knew he'd be at work, trying to maintain the facade of a normal life. I just wanted to be a ghost, in and out before he even knew I was there. I parked down the street, my heart starting to pound again, the calm of the woods evaporating in the city smog. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs, my key clutched in my hand like a weapon. I took a deep breath and slid it into the lock. It turned. The door swung open onto the apartment, and I stopped dead. The smell hit me first. Not his cologne, not our coffee. It was the cloying, sweet scent of perfume, a scent I didn't recognize, and the apartment wasn't empty. Standing in the middle of our living room, holding one of my framed photos in her hand, was a woman with looping, cursive handwriting. Clara. She looked up as the door opened, her eyes, a startling, pale blue, widening in surprise. She wasn't what I had pictured. In my head, she was a villain, a caricature of a homewrecker. But the woman standing in my living room was just a woman. She was pretty, in a delicate, forgettable way, with mousy brown hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. She was wearing a beige trench coat, looking utterly out of place amidst the controlled chaos of my life. The photo in her hand was of me and Chloe, laughing on a beach, our arms thrown around each other. My photo, in my home. A wave of pure, unadulterated rage washed over me, so hot and intense it made me dizzy. The calm I had cultivated in the woods shattered into a million tiny pieces. "What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" My voice was low, guttural, a sound I didn't recognize as my own. Clara flinched, hastily putting the picture frame back on the mantelpiece, her movements jerky and nervous. "He let me in," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Alex, he gave me a key. He gave her a key to our home, to my home." The words were a physical blow knocking the air from my lungs. How long had this been going on? How many times had she been here, in my space, sleeping in my bed, touching my things, while I was at work, blissfully unaware? The timeline of his betrayal stretched back, longer and darker than I could have imagined. This wasn't a recent mistake. This was a calculated, long-term deception. "Get out," I said. The words were quiet, but they hung in the air with the weight of a death sentence. She just stood there, wringing her hands, a deer caught in the headlights. I wanted to talk to you." "I have nothing to say to you," I snapped, taking a step into the apartment and dropping my bag by the door. I refused to let her see me falter. I refused to let her see anything but ice. "You have 60 seconds to get out of my home before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." Her pale blue eyes filled with tears. "Please," she begged, and the pathetic desperation in her voice made my stomach turn. "You don't understand. He told me you two were over. He said you were just roommates, that the lease was complicated and you hadn't moved out yet. He said he was going to break up with you on this trip." The lies. They were so intricate, so layered. He had built two separate realities, and Clara and I were the unwitting stars of our own private shows. He'd told her our relationship was a technicality. He'd told me she was just a friend. He'd planned to use our romantic getaway, the one I had poured my heart into planning, as the stage for his grand breakup. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. "Does it look like we're just roommates?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm as I gestured around the small apartment. To the single bed we shared, to the wall of photos documenting our 2 years together, to the stupid little inside jokes scattered around the room, the chipped mug I'd bought him, the ridiculous stuffed animal he'd won for me at a carnival. "You saw all of this and you believed him? Or did you just not care?" She had the decency to look ashamed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "He can be very persuasive." "I know," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I know he can. Now your time is up. Get out." I walked past her, deliberately brushing her shoulder, and went straight to the bedroom. I pulled my largest suitcase from the top of the closet and threw it on the bed they had probably shared. I started pulling my clothes from the drawers, not bothering to fold them, just yanking them out in angry handfuls and stuffing them into the case. I could feel her watching me from the doorway. "He loves me," she said softly, as if trying to convince herself more than me. I laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, not turning around. "He doesn't love you. He doesn't love me. Alex doesn't love anyone but Alex. You and I? We're just mirrors. We just show him a reflection of what he wants to be. The devoted boyfriend, the tortured artist torn between two women. It's all a game to him. You think you've won? You haven't won a prize. You've been handed a life sentence. He will do to you exactly what he did to me." I zipped up the overflowing suitcase, my movements efficient and brutal. I grabbed my laptop bag, my jewelry box from the nightstand. I was a tornado, ripping through the life we had built, taking only what was mine. I left his things untouched. I didn't want a single thread of him in my new life. When I turned back to the doorway, she was still there, tears streaming down her face now. She looked small and broken. For a fleeting second, I almost felt a flicker of pity for her. We were both victims of the same con man, but the pity died the moment I remembered her note. I wish she wasn't going. I wish it was just us. She hadn't been an innocent bystander. She had been a willing participant. She had wanted me gone. "The note you left for him," I said, my voice cold and even. "My addition still stands. He's all yours now. And you know what? You deserve each other." I grabbed my suitcase handle and wheeled it towards the front door, my stride confident and purposeful. She scrambled out of my way, flattening herself against the wall, as if she were afraid I might actually strike her. I didn't look at her. I didn't look at anything. I just wanted to be out of the apartment, out of this life, away from the stench of their lies. My hand was on the doorknob when she spoke again, her voice shaking. "You should check his laptop." I paused, my back still to her. "What?" "His laptop," she repeated, her voice a little stronger now. "The old one, not his work one, the personal one he keeps in his closet. He thinks I don't know the password, but he's sloppy. It's my birthday." She sniffled. "He's not just cheating on you, you know. He's cheating on his company. He's been selling marketing strategies to their biggest competitor. He's been working with their VP, a man named Marcus Thorne. It's all in a folder on his desktop, labeled Side Hustle. I slowly turned around. The tears were gone from her eyes, replaced by a glint of something hard, something vengeful. She had just handed me a nuclear bomb. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. This was about felony. This was about destroying him in a way I hadn't even considered. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my mind reeling. A bitter smile twisted her lips. "Because he lied to me too. He told me you were nothing. He told me I was the only one. But when he called me this weekend, after you left, he wasn't relieved. He was a wreck. He was crying over you." Her expression was a mask of pure spite. "He might not love you, but he sure as hell doesn't want to lose you. And if I can't have him, then nobody can, especially not his career." The information Clara handed me felt heavy and dangerous, a weapon I wasn't sure I wanted to wield. My initial plan had been simple: disappear. Erase myself from Alex's life so completely that he'd eventually wonder if I'd ever existed at all. It was a passive revenge, the kind that festers in silence. But this was active. This was scorched earth. I looked at Clara, this woman who had been my rival just moments before. In her face, I saw a reflection of my own pain, twisted into something sharp and vengeful. She was right. If he had been crying over losing me, then his feelings for her were just as much of a lie as his feelings for me had been. We were just two sides of the same counterfeit coin. "Thank you," I said, the words feeling strange on my tongue. I didn't say anything else. I turned, pulled my suitcase over the threshold, and walked out of the apartment for the last time, leaving her standing alone in the ruins of the life she thought she'd won. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't go to my sister's. I checked into a generic hotel near the airport, a place of anonymous hallways and transient lives. I needed to think. For 2 days, I had been running on pure adrenaline and rage. Now, I had to be strategic. I thought about Alex, about his charm, his ambition, the slick way he could talk himself out of any situation. A simple accusation wouldn't be enough. He would deny it, paint Clara as a bitter, scorned woman and me as her crazy accomplice. I needed proof, irrefutable, career-ending proof. The key to our apartment was still on my keychain. The thought of going back made me physically ill, but I knew I had to. I waited until late the next evening, until I was sure he'd be home, stewing in his own misery. I parked a block away, watching the light in his window. I needed him out of the apartment, even if just for a little while. I picked up my phone and opened a new anonymous email account. The message I composed was short and to the point. Subject: your little side project. Message: Marcus Thorne. I know everything. Meet me at the Blackwood Cafe in 30 minutes if you want to keep your job. Come alone. I sent it to his personal email address and waited. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but I was counting on his arrogance and his panic. 15 minutes later, the light in the apartment window went out. A few moments after that, I saw his silhouette hurry down the street, head down, shoulders hunched. He was taking the bait. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sprinted up the stairs and let myself into the dark apartment. The air was stale, thick with the scent of his anxiety. I didn't turn on the lights, using my phone's flashlight to navigate to the bedroom closet. There it was, on the top shelf, buried under a pile of old sweatshirts, his personal laptop. I took it back to the hotel. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The password screen glowed in the dark room. Clara's birthday. I felt a pang of bitter irony as I typed in the date. Access granted. My breath hitched. There on the desktop was a folder innocuously labeled Side Hustle. I clicked it open. It was all there. Spreadsheets, copies of contracts, chat logs with Marcus Thorne detailing the sale of his company's intellectual property, bank statements showing large, untraceable deposits into an offshore account. It was worse than I thought. He hadn't just been cheating. He'd been orchestrating a massive corporate espionage scheme. He was a criminal. The sheer audacity of it, the depth of his deception, was staggering. He had risked everything: his career, his freedom for money, and ego. I spent the next few hours meticulously copying every file onto a secure thumb drive, every piece of damning evidence. When I was done, I wiped the laptop's recent history, closed it, and put it in my bag. I would have it delivered back to the apartment by a courier in the morning. He would never know I'd had it. The next morning, I composed another anonymous email. This one wasn't for Alex. It was for the CEO of his company, a man whose email address was surprisingly easy to find. Subject: Urgent security breach, confidential. Message: Sir, I am a concerned third party who has discovered that one of your senior marketing directors, Alex Reed, has been selling proprietary strategies and client data to your competitor via their VP, Marcus Thorne. The evidence is attached. I trust you will handle this matter with the discretion it deserves. I attached a zip file containing everything from the side hustle folder. I hovered my finger over the send button. This was the point of no return. Was this who I wanted to be? The kind of person who ruins someone's life, no matter how much they deserved it? I thought of the 19 years I had lived on this earth, the trust I had given, the love I had felt. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had tried to break my spirit. He had made me doubt my own sanity. This wasn't just revenge for me. It was justice for the next girl, and the one after that. This was for every person he would ever try to manipulate and discard. I clicked send. I never heard from Alex again. I blocked his number, his email, all his social media. But I heard what happened. Chloe told me a few weeks later. He'd been fired, of course. Escorted out of the building by security. His company was pursuing criminal charges. His name was mud in the industry he'd worked so hard to conquer. Clara, I heard, had quit her job the day after he was fired and moved back to her hometown. Their grand love affair had crumbled under the weight of the wreckage. I moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city, a small, bright studio with big windows that let in the morning sun. For the first few weeks, I felt like a ghost, haunted by the memory of who I used to be. But slowly, day by day, I started to feel like myself again. I filled my new home with things that were mine, with colors he would have hated, with music he would have called noise. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, poured myself into my work, and started to build a life that had no room for his shadow. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I was cleaning out an old purse when my fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. It was the note I had written, the one I'd slipped into his book. I had scribbled it down so fast I'd never actually reread it. I unfolded it in the sunlight streaming through my window. She's yours now. A small smile played on my lips. It was a curse that had come true. He was hers, and I was finally, completely, blessedly my own.